Okay, so I want to cover Superman, the Men of Tomorrow. This was a very interesting storyline because it takes place in the middle of the New 52. Matter of fact, it was written by Geoff Johns. It takes place after Krypton returns, but takes place before good old Truth Arc storyline that we had just wrapped up and covered. Now, when it comes to the Men of Tomorrow, like I said, it was written by Geoff Johns. Now, this was not his first time writing for Superman. Matter of fact, he had a lot of Superman storylines that he had written before the New 52. But this was kind of like his only Superman story he did in the New 52. And the thing was, it was kind of like the beginning of what he wanted to do in DC's rebirth. And you see what I mean as we go through this entire series or this entire storyline, because it was 7 parts long. But the goal of this was kind of like, hey, he's trying to build something to come down the road for later Superman books. And again, you'll see what I mean as we go through this entire story. And so getting into today's storyline, we actually jump back 25 years ago. And when we do, we pick up with a research center known as Ulysses Research Center. Now, this center is actually very important for the overall storyline. Now, when it comes to the actual center, it was made as a way to bring the top scientists from across the world over here to work on different kinds of experiments. We also kind of find out they were exploring different kinds of dimensions, but that was their downfall, because when we actually jump into today's story arc, we kind of find out the entire lab has been put on lockdown. And the reason why, because one of the dimensions that they were exploring, Dimension 2, had opened up a portal, and everything in that lab was being pulled into that portal. And so with the lab being on lockdown, they're trying to contain this portal before it is able to get out into the public. Now, we do focus on 2 scientists, and these 2 scientists, they have a baby. We kind of find out they were a couple the entire time working at this center. And of course, they had a baby, and they're trying to make sure their baby survives this entire experience. And so you had the father realize there is only one way to save their son's life, by sending him away into another dimension. Dimension 4. Now, that one right there, they have not fully explored that actual dimension. But when it comes to the father of this child, he believes it's the best thing to make sure their son survives. And so they put him in a rocket and they send him through the portal that leads over to Dimension 4. Right when you see the lab explode. And so now this boy is apparently the sole survivor of this entire research center. But getting back over to the present day, we see Superman, Clark Kent, fighting against Titano. Now, when it comes to Titano, I'm not going to sit down and truly explain who the character actually is. All you need to know is that he's being used as a way to show off Superman fighting against some huge creature or character in the middle of Metropolis. But we also kind of find out that Jimmy Olsen is trying to get a picture of Superman fighting against Titano. The problem is, though, while trying to get that picture, Clark is moving a tad bit too fast for Jimmy to get a good picture. And so, unfortunately, Jimmy gets a horrible picture of Superman fighting against Titano. But then we jump over to the Daily Planet. Now, when we do, we pick up with Jimmy Olsen trying his best to sell that photo over to Perry White, of course, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. Now, when it comes to Perry, he's very confused about the idea of why Jimmy is even working there. And the reason why, because around this point in the New 52, Jimmy's parents had disappeared, and they left him a whole lot of money. I'm talking about millions of dollars. And so homeboy should not be working at all. He should be at home trying to do something new with his new money. But either way, he wants to work. And the reason why? Because his parents' money are basically dirty money. And so he's kind of like, listen, that money right there was my parents, and really only got that money on accident. But either way, you have Perry tell Jimmy, your photo is not that great. Your photo technically sucks. But hey, you know what? I'll take it, give you some money, now leave. Now that is the moment where you have Clark Kent arrive at the Daily Planet. Now this is Perry trying to bring Clark back to the Daily Planet. Now remember, this takes place before the actual Superman Truth arc, like literally right before that arc right there. So Perry has no idea that Clark Kent is Superman, but this is Clark trying to, not him really, it's Perry more of trying to bring Clark back to the Daily Planet. Because in the earlier parts of the New 52, you had Clark leave the planet because of Morgan Edge, the person who actually owns the company. But it's Perry saying, listen, Morgan Edge is Morgan Edge, but I need someone like you back here at the actual Daily Planet because you were a great reporter. You knew how to get the right stories. And currently right now, a lot of things are happening across the world. And this takes place right after Forever Evil, where you had Lex Luthor and a group of bad guys being the ones to take down the crime syndicate to save the Earth. And so for Perry, he's kind of like, I need someone like you to kind of help me make sense of this new world that we are currently living in. Now, once you have Clark go home and try to relax, that is the moment where he hears someone calling out for help. And we kind of find out in the middle of Metropolis, some kind of crazy events are happening where you have this sinkhole appear in the middle of Metropolis, but also you have this random spacecraft appear as well. And so you have Clark become Superman and trying his best to save all the different lives who are being affected by this actual incident. Now, while trying to do that, well, something else or somebody else hits Clark from behind and he gets sent flying. And that is the moment where we get a look at Mr. Oz. And matter of fact, this was the first appearance of Mr. Oz in DC Comics. Now we already know who it is. It's Jor-El. But at this point right here in the New 52 and really in Superman comics, you had a lot of people wonder who in the world was this character. And matter of fact, we didn't see him again for a very long time. I want to say until DC Rebirth. Either way though, when it comes to Mr. Oz, he does speak in a way that he actually knows Superman, which makes sense because it's Jor-El. But he does tell Clark, get back up. I raised you to be somebody who never gets knocked down and stays down. But then you have Clark begin to fight against some kind of alien creature. Now, when the alien speaks, Clark has no idea what the alien is actually saying. Now, here's the thing though, guys, because when it comes to Superman, he does know a little bit of different languages from different planets across the universe. He does not know every single language. And so for Clark, it's kind of like, okay, you could be an alien from a planet I have never heard of, and so of course I have no idea what you are saying. But Clark is having a hard time actually take down this particular alien. And so while you have our hero trying his best to take down the alien, instead he is getting his butt kicked. Now luckily for him, another person does appear, where it seems like this guy right here has very similar powers to Superman. It seems to be another Superman-like character, and with his help, Clark was able to take down the alien creature. But now Clark is wondering, who is this other person, this long-haired blonde dude who just saved my life but has powers very similar to mine? But when it comes to our long-haired blonde character, he's wondering where in the world he is at. Now Clark tells him, you are in Metropolis, you are in America. But for our young character right here, he cannot believe that he is in America right now, because he was told the Earth was technically destroyed by one of his enemies. And we kind of find out this is the baby we saw at the very beginning of this video that was sent away to Dimension before. But with that being said, with him being here, he's wondering, oh my God, am I really back in America? Am I back on Earth right now? Because I was told that my home world was destroyed, that I was the sole survivor. But now I'm going to find out that is not technically true, that I'm actually, not the sole survivor. And so he tells Clark, my name is Ulysses, and I'm happy to say I am not alone. Now, as we get into the second chapter, we pick up with Perry White getting very angry about the idea that the Daily Planet was not the first newspaper company to publish a story and also get a good picture of Superman working alongside with Ulysses. And so with that happening, you have Perry getting very upset about the idea all his reporters and also photographer Jimmy not doing their jobs or not being better at their jobs. And so homeboy is just yelling at the top of his lungs and be all like, y'all better get out of there. I don't care what part of the paper you work on. I don't care you do sports. I don't care you do like dog photos. I don't care what you do. Everybody is going to work on this particular story right here. I want to know who is our new Superman, but on top of that, is there some kind of relation between the two of them? And so you have all the reporters leave, but that's when you have Clark walk in. And we come to find out that Clark wants to know about the actual Ulysses Research Center from 25 years ago. And the reason why, because Perry White wrote an article about the actual incident 25 years ago. And so this is Clark asking Perry, does he remember anything about the actual incident? Now, with that being said, Perry does tell us some things we already knew from the earlier parts of this story, but we do get some new information. And we kind of find out that yes, these were the top scientists who all left and went over to the actual center to begin to work on different kinds of experiments. Except we kind of find out every single scientist was working for a military group in different countries around the world and making weapons of mass destruction. And so every single scientist got tired of the idea of making weapons that could hurt other people. And so that was the main reason why all of them left their jobs and came over to that research center. But on top of that, they were trying to find a better home for themselves. And that led into them looking into other dimensions. But the problem was Dimension 2. An unknown energy source came out of the portal that led into Dimension 2 that basically had to force a shutdown on the actual research center to make sure that actual energy did not get outside of the actual center. And when it comes to Perry, he said, listen, when I last heard, there were no survivors at all. Everyone died in that particular incident. And so then you have Clark pull out a photo of a couple that was holding a baby. And of course, it's the same two folks we saw at the very beginning of this video. It is Ulysses' parents. But it's Perry White saying, yeah, I heard about this couple, but that is technically it. But then that is the moment you have Clark and Perry get interrupted by something else happening in the Daily Bugle, or Planet, sorry. We come to find out it is Ulysses who had arrived at the Daily Planet. Now, when he does arrive at the Daily Planet, he's looking for Clark Kent because he knows that Clark is Superman. But here's the thing though, guys, like I said earlier, this takes place before the Superman Truth arc. And so the entire world still has no idea that Clark Kent is Superman. But on top of that though, it's Ulysses right now about to ruin that for Clark just being here and looking at Clark like, hey man, I have been looking for you. And so Clark had to make us some kind of cover story to make sure no one finds out that he is Superman by telling everyone, oh, by the way, I was able to score an interview with Ulysses. And you have Perry say, you better give us one heck of an article, one heck of a piece for the next paper for tomorrow. So get in there and get that interview now. But you have other reporters like Lois Lane kind of wondering, how in the world was Clark Kent able to pull an interview with the new man of tomorrow, Ulysses? But you have Clark take Ulysses over to his apartment. And really, this is more of Clark trying to figure out which parts of Ulysses' stories is actually false and which parts is actually true. Because for Clark, he does not believe in the idea that Ulysses was sent into another dimension 25 years ago to only come back 25 years later. And the thing is, we saw earlier, he was sent away into that other dimension. Now, at first, you could say that both characters do have a lot in common. They both were sent away to another world, but also believing they were the sole survivor of their home world that was destroyed. Because for Clark, he believed that he was the sole survivor until Supergirl and Zod and some other characters as well. But for Ulysses, comes to find out, the Earth was never destroyed. And so this is huge for him. Now, the only reason why he believed that, because he has a bad guy in his new world known as, and I'm going to butcher his name, which is Cleric. And when it comes to Cleric, he told Ulysses that he had destroyed the Earth. But in reality, that was a lie. Now for Clark, he's wondering, okay, where is this Cleric person? And you have Ulysses tell Clark, oh, he's currently locked up. But the thing is, he's getting healed up. And sooner or later, he'll come back and try to attack me, and most likely you as well. And this time try to actually destroy the Earth. Now for Clark, he still does not believe in what story that he's being fed. But he said, you know what? Stay here in my apartment. I'm going to do more research to see if what you are telling me is the actual truth. And so you have Clark head over to where the Ulysses Research Center was actually at. Now, when he does arrive, of course, he does go inside. And when he goes inside, he's trying his best to find any kind of clues that kind of help him get a better idea of what exactly happened 25 years ago. But apparently he does find something. But before we are able to learn what he found, he calls up Perry White in the story, switches back over to Ulysses. But when we do jump over to Ulysses, we currently see him thinking about the idea of exploring Metropolis. Now, even though Clark told him to stay there in the apartment, it's really more of Ulysses saying, you know what? This is my home world. I have not been here in 25 years. I want to actually explore Earth. And so he does grab some clothes of Clark Kent, change into Clark's clothes, and then goes into Metropolis to explore the actual city. Now, he does get a hot dog, and unfortunately, he has no idea that you have to pay for certain things, really, most things. But then, right after that, there is a huge explosion. And out of nowhere, you have a bunch of robot soldiers appear, and they begin to blow up Metropolis left and right. Now, of course, you do have Ulysses step in, but the question is right now, where did these robot soldiers come from? And so you have Ulysses be the hero that he wants to be, because right off the bat, he begins the process of taking down all these different robot soldiers. Now, while doing that, we kind of learn that he has not learned or gained the skill of damage control, because Homeboy is ripping through Metropolis to just go ahead and defeat these toy robots. Now that is the moment where you have Superman come back to Metropolis and see what Ulysses has done. Now he is technically upset with Ulysses for not staying in the apartment like he told him to do, but at the same time it's kind of like, well, okay, Metropolis was in danger and you had to step in. Now, when it comes to Clark, he realized that these robot soldiers have very similar tech to Titano, the big huge gorilla we saw in the last chapter. And so it's Clark saying, okay, you know what? I have something else to research besides you, but you and I have to go somewhere else. And so you have Clark take Ulysses over to a random couple's house. And of course, you already know what is about to happen next, because we kind of find out Ulysses' parents did not die 25 years ago. That matter of fact, after they were able to send their son away, hopefully somewhere safe, they were actually able to contain the portal that led into Dimension 2. And once they were able to contain that, then the center actually shut down. But on top of that, when it comes to Ulysses' parents, they survived. They went ahead and moved into a house by themselves, but hoping that one day they will be able to see their son once again. And so, of course, Clark was able to find them and say, hey, I found your son. He came back to Earth 25 years later. Here's your son, Ulysses. But getting into the third chapter, we do pick up with Mr. Oz. Now, when we do, it is him currently thinking about the idea of releasing something or someone to go after Superman. Now, again, we have no idea why just yet, but you do have Mr. Oz remind us about the whole life of Clark Kent, the things he went through, the idea that he was sent away from his home world. He was originally the sole survivor of his home world. He lost his parents, both sets of parents. And the thing is, Clark never did give up hope. But either way, it's Mr. Oz thinking, okay, should I release you or not? But getting back over to Superman, Ulysses, and Ulysses' parents, we do learn a tad bit more about them, but at the same time, we kind of get a reminder of their actual origin. And what I mean by that is, remember earlier, we had learned that all the scientists who came to that research center were scientists from across the world who were working for different military groups. When it comes to Ulysses' parents, they were working for the American military. But the thing is, they got tired of the idea of building weapons of mass destruction. But also they were confronted by somebody known as Margaret Knight. Now, when it comes to Dr. Margaret Knight, she told the parents of Ulysses that their weapons are causing mass destruction, but she had an idea for all scientists to go to a new world, a new dimension, which of course led to the birth of the actual research center. But like we saw 25 years ago, thanks to that portal that led to Dimension 2, of course, the entire center was completely wrecked. But the thing is, when it comes to the parents of Ulysses, they were the sole survivors of the incident. Because right after they had sent their son away to Dimension 4, they found a way to actually shut down the portal that led into Dimension 2. The problem is though, once they did that, of course, everybody else died in the research center except them, but also their child was already sent away to Dimension 4. And unfortunately, all the work they done to hopefully figure out how to travel to Dimension 4 was all gone, of course, as well. And so with that happening, they had no way to get their son back over to the Earth dimension. And so they're kind of like, we just prayed for a miracle that one day you'll be able to come back to us, and here you are 25 years later. But the question is right now, what happened to Ulysses over there in Dimension 4? And so once Ulysses had arrived 25 years ago in Dimension 4, he was found by two loving parents. They took him in and began to raise him. Now, his adoptive father was also a doctor, and he was able to realize that when Ulysses had traveled through dimensions, he had absorbed the energy of Dimension 4 and infused with his cells. And so with that happening, of course, Ulysses had gained powers when he arrived in Dimension 4, super strength, super speed, and also being able to release a huge amount of energy. Now, you also have Ulysses tell us that in Dimension 4, there was world peace across the board. Like, there was literally no trouble at all, except every once in a while because a being known as Cleric would appear. Now, Cleric was not from Dimension 4. He came from one of the 5 great dimensions. But when he would arrive, he would cause a lot of trouble. And usually Ulysses would use his powers as a way to protect Dimension 4 from him. Now, when it came to their last battle, Ulysses had killed the brother of Cleric. And when that happened, Cleric said that he would get revenge against Ulysses and find his home world, of course, talking about Earth. And so that is why earlier when Ulysses arrived on Earth, he believed the Earth was basically destroyed, to only find out it was not destroyed. It is actually alive and well. And so now the question is, will he go back to Dimension 4? Because now he realized he can have a life here with his parents, his biological parents. And so you have Ulysses tell his parents, no, I'm not going to go back to Dimension 4. Why would I? Because the thing is, Dimension 4 has complete peace across the board. And when it comes to Cleric, he's here on Earth locked up. Because remember, earlier we saw Superman fight against some kind of creature. That was Cleric. And so we saw Superman and Ulysses being able to defeat Cleric. And he is currently locked up, which means the home world, not his home world, sorry, Dimension 4 is technically at peace. The only time it was not at peace when Cleric arrived and began to attack that dimension. But now with him being locked up, it'll have peace forever. There's no point for him to go back. Now, his adoptive parents had also died, just like Clark's adoptive parents had died. And so for Ulysses, he's kind of like, I really don't have anybody back there to go to. So yeah, I'm going to stay here on Earth. Now, you also have Clark tell the parents of Ulysses that he has somebody who can kind of help give Ulysses a life here on Earth. You know, kind of build up a paper trail to say that he was always on Earth. He never did disappear. They always had a son. It's just you guys never noticed. And so it's him beginning the process of having a new chance to live a life on Earth. And so you have Clark go back home to get some sleep. Unfortunately, when he does go back home, well, that is the moment where he is confronted by Ulysses. And we see Ulysses kind of amazed about the idea that Clark is trying to get some sleep. And the reason why, because when it comes to Ulysses, when he traveled to Dimension 4 25 years ago and absorbed the energy of Dimension 4, it gave him enough fuel to kind of keep him awake, to never be tired. And he's very amazed that Clark is not tired, because Clark is technically a solar battery with the yellow sun constantly feeding him solar energy. But the thing is, Clark says, yeah, you're right. I could possibly go on without sleep for a few days, but the thing is though, I want to be able to dream. That's the thing, because dreams are very important for almost anybody, because dreams are what motivate us to achieve certain goals in our lives. Either way, you then have Ulysses show Clark a piece of one of the robot soldiers from earlier, and you have Ulysses say, listen, when it comes to any kind of beings or even robots, they all use some kind of energy, and I am able to follow their energy trail when they are releasing that energy wherever they go. And so he tells Clark, when you flew away to the Daily Planet earlier, you released a certain kind of energy that I was able to follow. And so when it comes to these robots, yes, they're robots, but they also use energy as well. They leave a trail behind that I'm able to find and follow. And so it is Ulysses saying, I think I know where these robots are coming from. If we work together, we could technically stop the bad guy behind this. And so once you have Clark and Ulysses being able to follow the trail over to a scrapyard, and you have Clark explain what a scrapyard is to Ulysses, they both realize there is a base underneath the yard, but unfortunately Clark cannot look inside of it because his X-ray vision cannot go through lead. The entire base is covered in lead, but you have Clark try to use his heat vision to open an opening so they'll be able to go inside the actual base. But the problem is though, his heat vision is not working properly. Matter of fact, it gets to the point where his heat vision begins to go crazy and he has to stop using it. But you have Ulysses realize it could be him for the reason why Clark's heat vision is not working properly, because one of the many powers that Ulysses has is to be able to manipulate different kinds of energies. And so of course with heat vision being a kind of energy, it's most likely going crazy because of Ulysses. Either way, you do have our two characters go inside the actual base. Now, once our heroes do go inside the actual base, you have our heroes begin to look around and try to find any kind of clues to figure out what in the world is going on here. Except that is the moment you have Ulysses begin to attack Clark Kent. And the only reason why, because some kind of device had basically embedded itself inside the head of Ulysses and began to control him. Now, once Clark was able to realize what in the world is going on with his new friend, and be able to take down his new friend and get rid of the device that was controlling his friend, well, that is the moment where he is confronted by the Machinist. Now, the Machinist is a new character introduced in this particular storyline, but he was the one who had created the robot soldiers from earlier, but also the one who also created Titano, who made Titano attack Metropolis earlier as well. This is our main bad guy for this particular story. Now, when it comes to our new villain, the Machinist, he does tell Superman why he's doing what he is doing, by saying that if he is able to prove that his machines, that his creations are able to go against Superman for at least 5 minutes, possibly 10, he can then sell his machine to the highest bidder, because people want to buy his tech if his tech is able to go toe-to-toe with Superman. Now, when it comes to Clark, his whole idea is to shut everything down here and now. And matter of fact, you also have Ulysses get back up and want to shut everything down as well too. But the difference is that Ulysses is full of rage, because he hates the idea that he was mind controlled. And because he was mind controlled, he's kind of like, you have to die. And so you have Ulysses kill off the Machinist just like that, by using his heat vision and literally blowing a hole right through the Machinist's chest. Is kind of like, okay, so our new hero is technically a cold blood killer, except you have the Machinist say, no, I'm still here. You just killed an innocent man. And we kind of find out the Machinist was never here. He was controlling somebody, but speaking through a speaker that was placed on the neck of the person that he was using. And so it was the Machinist just saying, the only reason why I did this because I knew, one, you guys would try to capture me. Two, it now gives me more information about you guys. And three, now I know my tech is able to go toe to toe with you guys for at least 5 minutes. But on top of that, number four, you killed off an innocent man. Now, as we jump into the 4th chapter, you have Clark tell us, the readers, but also Ulysses, that technically he is an innocent man. That the guy that he believed that he had just killed was already dead. And the reason why Clark knows this is because the same kind of tech that was used on Ulysses earlier to control his body was being used on this innocent man as well. And so when it comes to our new villain, the Machinist, he was just using this innocent man's dead body as a way to trick Superman and also Ulysses. And so once you have Clark tell Ulysses that, he also tells Ulysses, listen dude, no matter what happens, you always have to find a different way. Killing is a huge no-no. Now for Ulysses, he's kind of like, no Clark, you were about to die. You were about to get murdered. But for Clark, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. You always have to find a different way, because what you just did right there is the complete wrong way. But I'm going to give you a second chance. And so that is when you have Clark pull out another piece of technology that belongs to the Machinist. And it's Clark saying, you have the ability to follow energy trails. This time, follow this trail so that we be able to hopefully find our new bad guy here. And so with that ability, you have Clark and also Ulysses being able to locate the real Machinist. Now, when they are able to locate him, he is currently out in the middle of the ocean trying to fight through one heck of a storm. But the reason why, to meet up with one of his clients who plans to buy a lot of his tech for a huge amount of money. But the thing is, like I said, Clark and Ulysses was able to find him with Ulysses' power being able to follow different kinds of energy trails. And so once they do locate him, we do get a few pages of our heroes trying to stop his boat, but to also fight against his army of bird robots who are trying to protect him. But once they are able to kind of defeat all the different robots, that is the moment they get the chance to grab the machinist and to hopefully learn everything about him. But unfortunately, they're not going to right off the bat. But while our heroes were working together, you have Mr. Oz once again watching Clark Kent. He's not watching Ulysses, he's watching Clark Kent. Now, back when the New 52 was happening and we had this book, it kind of made a lot of fans wonder who was Mr. Oz. But now we know it is Jor-El. It makes a lot of sense of why he's watching Clark so closely. But once our heroes are able to get their hands on the machinist, you then have our heroes say their next goal is to figure out who are the different clients that he has across the world. And so luckily for Superman, when it comes to Ulysses, he has the ability to follow different kinds of energy trails. And so it's him saying, I will basically trace all the different trails of people that you had contact with to figure out who are your different clients across the world. But the problem is though, when it comes to the machinist, he has built so many machines for different people across the world. Once you have Ulysses begins the process of trying to pick up all the different kinds of energy trails, he realized there are a bunch of weapons across the world. And this is going to be a huge moment for Ulysses. Because remember, he was sent away 25 years ago to a world that had complete peace, to only come back to Earth because he found out that Earth was never destroyed. But now he is learning everything about the Earth, especially the idea that Earth has wars going on across the board. And so it's him realizing that the Earth is technically in trouble. And when it comes to people like the machinist, well, he's out there supplying the different people who are involved in wars across the world. And so it's Clark saying, yes, this is our world, but it's up to us and other heroes to lead the world into a better direction where there is no war, where there's peace across the entire planet. And once you have Clark tell Ulysses that, he kind of realized, okay, we have a lot of work to do. But you didn't have Ulysses leave. And when he does leave, is Clark wondering where in the world is he going now? Now, with that being said, you have the machinist talk to Clark a tad bit more. And he says, it's crazy that you think that possibly down the road, the world will be better off with machines and weapons. And you don't realize that machines and weapons, technically war, is part of the human culture. No matter what you do, war will always be around. And so when it comes to stopping me, unfortunately, you'll never be able to stop me at all. And you have the machinist tell Clark that he was sent here by Mr. Oz. Of course, we already know that is Jor-El. But the thing is, Clark has no idea who Mr. Oz is. He has no idea that his father, Jor-El, is still alive. Either way, you have the machinist blow up the boat they were on and being able to get away. And so you have Ulysses fly over to different parts of the world. Now, when he does, this begins the idea of him realizing what the world is truly like. He's realizing that there's war everywhere across the world. That war's been going on for a very long time on the planet Earth. But the thing is, he would have known that because he was gone for 25 years in another dimension to only come back and find out that your home world is plagued with wars left and right. And so it's kind of him realizing that he has to do something to make a change for the entire Earth. Now, after a couple hours or possibly the next day, you have Superman looking everywhere for Ulysses, but unfortunately, he could not find him anywhere at all. And so, with that being said, you have Superman call up Ulysses' parents, where of course they also tell him they have no idea where he is at. But then, out of nowhere, you have someone playing a broadcast across everybody's television, everybody's cell phones. And that's when we kind of find out it is Ulysses making an offer to the entire world, where he says that when he left this world 25 years ago because of his parents, he arrived in a dimension where there was peace across the entire planet. There was no war at all. But when he came back here to Earth, he thought he would have the ability to blend in perfectly with the rest of the humans, but to also kind of learn how the way the Earth works. But only being here for a couple days, he already learned the Earth is not a place for him, nor for other people who are like him. And what he means by that, people who hate war, people who want to have a better life, people who are out there starving, people who want to see peace across the board. And so this is Ulysses saying, I have the ability to take you guys to a better world, a better dimension. And so it's him saying, why not go ahead and come back with me to Dimension 4, where in that dimension, there's peace across the board. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see you next time. Later.